Hi, and welcome to the Expansive podcast. My name is Eric Kruger. Thank you for joining us. As always, it is great to host you. And before jumping on this podcast today, I was actually thinking that as organizations and people are going through this big reset, maybe it's also time for the podcast to receive a bit of a reset or a rebrand. Since my co-host is perpetually on a farm, maybe we should be naming this the Farmers Weekly podcast with Farmer John. And then I'll just be the co-host that introduces you. You can talk about avo farming. You can talk about
yes.
Life on the farm.
Soil health.
There we go.
Soil health. So look, all farmers are actually soil farmers. This is what I've learned. The healthier your soil is, the healthier your crop is. So you don't need to look after your crop. You need to look after your soil, which is a fantastic analogy when it comes to us preparing for our reality, because you need to be caring for your primary relationships, not only your secondary relationships, which we'll get into today's chat. Hello, Eric. Wonderful to be here. Look, my days on the farm are numbered. I have reached isolation peak. I've been here for 2 months now. I only see monkeys, real monkeys that go past my door, the dogs and my mom and dad. So it's time for me to move. So yes, I'm making plans to get down myself to Cape Town and relocate in the next couple of months, waiting for the COVID peak to come over. But yeah, I don't think Farmers Weekly is very much on track. I don't know enough to share about it, but good suggestion. Yes, there seems to be a reboot of everything that's going on in the world right now. We're watching things in America. You and I were speaking offline about rebooting our internal dialogues, our businesses, our everything. And I think today's theme is very much around experimentation, trying new things, redesigning income streams, how you impact the world. And so, yeah, I think both of us are in a state of reinvention. And I think this topic today is really just something that we want to share with everybody, because on one hand, it's, for me personally, quite frustrating, but also quite exploratory in coming up with new ways of trying to reinvent. And I think it's always difficult because your brain has to be quite literally firing different synapses in order to be able to bring up something new. So I find myself highly energized and then totally like deflated because I'm just so tired from trying to figure new things out. So tell us a little bit about your reinvention. Tell us what you're up to.
Yeah, I think a good place to start is just to talk about the fact that clarity is such a difficult thing to come by at the moment. And I think there's, we were speaking a little bit, and we should have actually just recorded that as the podcast a little bit before we jumped on. But we were saying that, there's so many different ways to get to clarity, and there's the approach of letting go and kind of letting things unfold the way they need to unfold. And you bring your best to the table, you follow your highest excitement, like you always say, and you kind of see where it takes you. And then there's also this process where, I've run Think Week, you've run Future Preparedness. And the idea is, let's also evaluate our lives through these different filters and these different ideas. And by doing that, we also create more clarity and understanding for ourselves. And over the past few weeks, I've really taken this quite seriously, sitting down, trying to think through not only business models, but also, again, I guess the question that we always sit with, which is, who do I want to be and what will I be doing? And it's been a really interesting journey. And it's also been very frustrating at the same time, not knowing like what the future is going to look like and how we will get there. And do we go back to lockdown again? And also, I think, I'm really feeling the lack of human interaction. I'm really missing the stage. I'm really missing being at an offsite and having the energy of people in the room to engage with. That's become such a big, like, it's a longing like that you feel in your chest. And I know you feel the same. How have you been?
Look, I think just to talk about certainty, the book I'm writing right now, Future Next, the payoff line below the title is certainty delusion. And it's almost like, there's just, we don't know. And we're in this transition phase. And you spoke about it at the AWS keynote that you did, is that transformation puts you into a place of no man's land. And it feels like we're all in no man's land. It's almost like, what now? Like, what do we anchor ourselves to? And I think that's my level of just like, you know, we're talking about having certainty, but how do you have certainty without an anchor point? And so if we are in the transition phase, in the no man's land phase, in the transformation phase, it's almost like you have to almost let go at such a deep level of letting go of those longings, letting go of any future anchor points. And it's just, it's funny. It's like almost like we're bobbing in the middle of, like you watch the news and, you know, America's blowing up and South Africa's going through its own things and Cape Town's about to peak in COVID. And it's like everywhere you look, you're like, hang on a second. It's like, there's no clarity. Everything's in flux. And even our businesses, you know, we were talking offline again. It's like my biggest clients, my wealthiest clients are offering me a pittance of what they used to offer me because they don't have clarity. And it's almost like one side of me says, are you mad? But the other side of me says, these people don't know where the next income is coming from. And so they are prioritizing salaries. And so I agree with that. But then as a service provider, how do I add value that's long-term, that's valuable, that puts me back into what my earning income stream was before? And then the question comes is, am I still am I adding enough value to actually want that much money from them? And so, yeah, it's just so much flux, you know, and I think everybody listening to our podcast must be feeling it because they're living in the same world we are. And so, you know, every time you switch on Twitter and you switch on news, you're like, oh my God, what is going on out there? You know? So, yeah. So like,
So I want to ask you something, because when I started speaking about instant evolution, one of the things I said is that we have to stop decoding and we have to encode. And decoding means that we have this plan for the future. We decode it back to what we need to do today to get there. Encoding is I'm going through the best decisions and the best actions I can do for today and letting the future take care of itself. And we are both very much like fans of creating a vision for the future. So how do people create a vision for the future when you have no idea where the future is going? Where like, yeah, we just don't know. So like, do we just let go of a vision of the future, or what do we do?
So a great question. And I think it's a bit of both encoding and decoding. But what I do in my meditations is I've moved away from envisioning what it looks like to how it feels. And there's three emotions that I keep reminding myself of in my meditations is affluence, influence, and adaptability. It's almost like I want to be affluent. So in other words, I want to be comfortable. I want to be luxurious in my surroundings and my sort of interactions with food and clothes and those sort of things with a minimalist mindset. I also want to be influential, meaning that my social capital is running high, which means that my brand is doing well. And then being adaptable, being wise and elegant and flexible. And having those three emotions is what I'm projecting. And I would imagine the only anchor points that I'm actually trying to get to are those emotional states, you know? What are you doing? What's your idea?
You know, so I love that. And I'm definitely going to implement that for myself as well. I think what I've been trying to do is when I reflect on my life and the business that I was trying to build, even before COVID, like, you know, he was saying like things were going so well, like there was such momentum for both of us. And then that momentum just got stripped away. Sorry, can you guys still hear? There's a leaf blower outside my window.
Yes.
Welcome to working from home. But if it's clear enough. So I was asking myself, like, what were the deeper things that were driving me towards that future anyway? And so I told you beforehand, we should have actually just recorded the previous one because we just keep referring to that conversation. I was saying that, you know, what I want to do and what I've always wanted to do is to work at a high level with people who are at a high level. And so if I have that as a guiding principle, then what that ends up looking like is quite open to interpretation. And it could be a think week. It could be a facilitation. Although I've really found that I don't enjoy the online facilitation sessions. I love Think Week, for example, but I haven't enjoyed team coaching online. And that's also okay. Like, it doesn't have to be part of the new skill set. I've been designing 3 different Think Weeks for organizations though. And like that is really firing me up. It really speaks to the things that I like doing. So I think there's sort of 2 things that people can take from this. The one is then, what is it that you want to feel and emulate that, go for that. And the second part is like, what are the principles, the deeper things that guide your life anyway? And how do you just give it a new format, a new mechanism of delivery, like we said last time?
Yeah, look, I think the line that says strong opinions held loosely. It's almost like, because we don't have any certainty and we don't have any guarantee of anything, it's almost like have concepts that you want to drive towards, but then be comfortable with how you get there, because everything's in a state of flux. The whole earth is in a transformation, and it's not just business, but it's race relations, it's sexuality relations, it's just so much, you know. And like, if you look at like what's happening with the dollar and the stock exchange, and 200 million jobs gone. I mean, it's like, wow, like everything's in a state of flux. And so I think internally we're also going through this. You know, there was a full moon now, and about 150 planets are in retrograde. That's an exaggeration, but you know what I feel and mean. But so like, there's so much on the go, you know. So I think you know what we wanted to talk about today in the podcast is to become okay with experimentation. And you know, I did some work with a big bank here in South Africa a few weeks ago, and it sat with me because it kind of pissed me off. Is that, you know, what I keep finding is I find that females in HR departments and transformational roles, and this happens in Dubai, in UAE, and South Africa, they bring me in because of my research around the circular economy, around more sustainable, more elegant, long-term business models. And they always bring me in because they are such fans of the work. And then they hand me over to their male CEO that's an accountant that does not want to know about anything to do with circular economy, but only wants to talk about efficiency, profitability, and growth. And here I am trying to convince somebody that doesn't want to be convinced. Meanwhile, everybody around him wants to have a sustainable business model moving forward. So he comes in with the language of agility, but is zero agile, zero. He comes in with the language of culture first, but he couldn't give a sod because last year he made 50 odd million rand. So he actually doesn't care. And I keep hitting my head against these male dominant CEOs from years of power and education. And look, articulate and intelligent beyond, but zero emotional EQ, like just none, because they just haven't been trained in that. So when it comes to experimentation, and what I was trying to get them, the exco, to understand is, look, you can't say you're agile and then still practice zero experimentation, zero tomorrow teams, zero everything else, and just have it in your mission statement. And so when I started thinking about it more and more, I started realizing, look at our lives. It's like you and I have been experimenting with so many different things. We're not running for efficiency. You've brought on a business manager. You've made a shareholder. I've made my business manager a shareholder. I've got other people that are networked into my business. These guys that are making my new mini videos and movies with me, I'm bringing them in as a partner. So we are in a process of not driving efficiency. We are in a process of driving robustness. And robustness means that we are looking to collaborate with people with other skill sets to make us better and more impactful into the world. And robustness and efficiency are exactly opposite. And so I think my frustration also comes in with the fact that when you're experimenting, you don't have any guarantees in place. And I think, you know, you and I are agile in our way of setting up business and making money. These poor CEOs that are running big organizations with heavy overheads, it's almost an impossibility for them to think about agility besides it being in their mission statement. What have you felt around this, Eric?
Yeah, I think you nailed the nail on the head. Perfectly said, you know. And I'm actually going to, since we're coming up on time, and I know that you have to jump off at a very specific time, I'm going to leave that there. I'm not going to even add to it. I think you articulated it well. Tell me a little bit about future preparedness, because we also wanted to, you know, we've both created these sort of week-long programs, coaching programs, programs to help people think through different ideas. And I've just went through yours. I've just gone through yours, gone through yours. Future preparedness. I really enjoyed it. And
we obviously didn't go through any. We didn't go through any English grammar because Eric's
I can see that
today.
Listen, it's just a distractible day.
Okay.
So tell me a bit about your experience with it, and then I'll tell you. I'll give you my feedback.
Well, look, I think going back to Think Week as well, you know, I went through yours, and I think it was great that both of us were involved in our first cohorts. Both of us did the first inaugural sprint weeks that we did. And just for everybody out there, if they don't know about them, there are 5 days. Eric does these from 7:30 to 8:30 South African time. I do mine from 8 to 9 a.m. Once a month. We do it for the public, and then we do them for corporates as well that are designed for whatever they're looking for, whether it's leadership or consumer behavior or change management, whatever it is. And so we run these 5-day sprints. And I think it's brilliant because we do it at the first hour of your day, because you're fresh, you're crisp, you're thinking, you're ready to bring change as early as possible in your day. And so look, yours is focused much more on thinking. I think mine is focused on emotional stuff as well as futurist stuff, which is exactly what we've studied and what we do and what we actually talk about. So it's a reflection and an extension of our existing expertise and specialities. So look, mine covers 5 topics. The first topic is perspective management, which is about stories and memories that we carry, that we project into the future. Day 2 is about the future of work and business. Day 3 is on the future of the consumer and how it's changing. Day 4 is starting with the end in mind and working backwards in a first principle manner. And day 5 is about building rituals, habits, and behaviors moving forward, trying to bring your plan of stories and rituals and future of business and consumer into play so that you have a game plan moving forward, So,
which of those days do you think had the most impact? Or do you think people resonated with the most?
I think day 4 for me is my favorite. I call it capital magnetism. And capital magnetism is about the different capitals we have in our life. We have time capital, health capital, relationship capital, money capital, social capital, knowledge capital. And so what we do is we only drive 1 or 2 of them. We don't actually drive all of them. And we have primary and secondary relationships. And our primary relationships are around our self-worth, our relationship with our stories and our memories, and our secondary relationships are our business relationships. And so what we do often is we just focus on our secondary relationships, not giving any relationship or time to our primary relationship. So I think the combination culminates in capital magnetism, because you have to emotionally feel you worthy of social capital, money capital, time capital, relationship capital, and then apply future of business and future of work and future of the consumer together, so that you can have both of these relationships in a solid, healthy state to create what you want. So look, that's a little summary of mine. Tell us about yours and how it's broken down, and then we can give each other our experience of what we enjoyed.
Yeah. So what I wanted to do with mine, the way I think about it is that we think in glances. And this is actually this is language that came out of the week for me, that we look at an idea and we like we attend a webinar and we hear all these different ideas. And also because of the way that a webinar is often set up, or an article is set up with 10 points, we go read point 1, read point 2, read point 3. Like I'm just going through the list. I'm not stopping at any point and just saying, how does this actually apply? And so what I wanted to do is, over the years, having worked with individual clients, working with corporate clients, I've asked myself, what were the 5, 6 ideas that had the biggest impact for people? And let's then use those in a week where we can just filter our thinking through that, because I really believe that the quality of your life and the quality of the actions that you take can only rise as high as your thinking. Like there's no way your thinking is the going to be a roof on the level of action that you can take, So day 1 is around understanding the process of change. Day 2 is about being dangerous, and that's definitely, I think, one of the most impactful days. Someone actually asked me today if I'm still writing the book on being dangerous, which I've kind of put to the side, but that's maybe a conversation for another day. Day 3 is around how are you being complicit in creating the life that you have and the life that you often say you don't want. Day 4 is, I'm drawing blank. And I'm busy with Think Week, by the way. This is like I'm busy with a second cohort at the moment. But day 5 is the commitment day. It is when we decide like what are the areas of focus that you'll be working on moving forward. Day 4 is future design. So it's kind of similar to yours in that what do you want your future to look like? Trying to create a bit of clarity there. So I'm taking cohort number 2 through it this week. And it's really interesting how it's already adapting and evolving. And obviously that, without saying, that'll be happening anyway. But it's just interesting to see how people respond to the different ideas. And, you had like lots of small little touches in yours that I really enjoyed and that I've copied some of them. For example, the timer.
I saw the slides. I saw your slides. I was like, those look familiar.
Which
No,
slides?
that looks
Which
great.
slides?
You put something on social media, but let's take that offline. We don't want to get our guests to be part of this argument. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking.
Listen, it's not a competition.
Yeah.
You know that, unless I'm winning.
No. As long as I'm winning, it's not a
winning.
competition. If I'm losing, it's a flipping competition. No. It's good. Look. I think you taught me the whole structure, so I'm happy to
No,
help
it's been
as
amazing,
well,
dude.
obviously. Yeah.
Listen,
So look, one thing I took away from yours, and I think it was a beautiful thing for me, is that you were like, okay, so what do you want to change? Like you've gone through this. You're not thinking about things at glances. I love that phrase. And for me, it was softening. I know I shared that with the group, is that I am very driven. I always have been. It's just something that's inherent to me. But what I realized, that what I want to focus on is actually softening. It's softening in the absolutes that I drive, and I speak in absolutes, and I don't want to speak in absolutes. I want to speak in more flowing term and more elegant terms, in more inclusive terms. And it really has impacted me, because I've taken that and I'm practicing it. And, you and I speak offline often, and I've said to you, it's just, I've softened. I want to soften more and further. And so, yeah, I really appreciate that was brought up for me, and has fundamentally changed my approach. So thanks to feedback.
That's amazing, dude. Thank you for that. And
Pleasure.
I think that's one of the amazing things of, when I was on your sessions as well. I mean, you had like 3 people kind of break down and cry about this process of like unearthing very deep things for them. And I mean,
is that how we know we're successful? When people cry?
When they cry, yeah. So we'll have like a running Excel
spreadsheet.
Did you have
cry? I had 3 cry. You 6. Damn it! I got to get tougher on my workshop cohorts. Yeah, I got to ask them about their daddy issues and just focus 100% on that. No, kidding. Yeah, they did break down. It was surprising to me that they broke down, to be honest. Yeah,
I was also surprised, but I was also not surprised, because I think the topics that you went through, like you very rightly said, they're quite emotional, and it's designed to get you thinking about stuff that has happened in the past that has wounded you. And I think that's such a, again, I don't think we stop enough. I don't think, and that's the beauty of this kind of process. It's a week long, where this theme is in the back of your mind the entire week. And so you're actually processing the entire week. It's not just for that hour. And, the biggest takeaway for me from your session was actually, I think, the very first day, when you took us through the drama triangle again, and actually made us reflect on how it's playing out in our lives. And I just realized how, and it's often your strengths are your weaknesses. And, I'm always in creating mode. And what I realized was that I'm always creating. Yeah. And I mean, we have a running joke about that by now. But what happens is that over time, I create so much that that becomes my drama, because I have so many things I need to focus on, so many things that need my attention. And then I'm like, okay, I need to focus. And what do I do to focus? I create more. So I end up with this like wide variety of things that I need to focus on and pay attention to. And because of that, I'm just moving in too many different directions. And so it just made me realize that creator mode is a phenomenal thing to be in. But as much as I want to create, it needs to be more channeled. It needs to be more focused. And just, I need to cull a lot of the things. And when I find myself in drama mode, perhaps the answer shouldn't be create first.
More.
PH should be cull first, and like to bring more attention to.
Didn't you use an example that you had 7 email addresses? Like you switched on, you're like, what am I doing with 7 email addresses? Why
I have like coach at ericruger.com, and that was because I was going into coaching. Then I have Eric at ericruger.com. Then I had Mental Performance Lab, Modern Breed. It was insane, dude. And so what's actually come from that is that we are consolidating everything. Like everywhere where I can find that there's an email address that I've used for even a registration on a website, I'm taking it away. I don't want to be spread thin anymore. And that's ultimately what needs to happen, right? Like something like something needs to change.
But so amazing that both of us have actually not driving more. We both experienced each other's weeks, and both of us have said we need less. not
Yes.
more. How funny. Both of us are like, no, I need less now, not more.
Yeah.
It's like, so much for future preparedness and think week. I need to think less. I need to be less prepared for the future. Anyway, look, let's close off because
Awesome. Amazing.
I do have to go. But
Thank you.
everybody that's listening, thank you so much again for all of you listening, all the fantastic comments, all the remarks that we get. Please join both Eric and I on our Think Week and Future Preparedness workshops. Come and experience it. We put a lot of effort into these things. We curate, collate.
Yeah.
I mean, Eric and I are often on WhatsApp with each other late into the night, trying to figure new things out and add new things. And it really is our highest excitement and our fascination to try and evoke expansiveness in people around us. And so, yes, join us. And again, thanks for listening and sharing our podcast. And we look forward to the next one. Ciao.
Thank you. I'll add a link on theexpansive.com, by the way, for everyone who wants to find the different programs. All right. Cool. Everyone, Good. Thank you. John, it's always a pleasure. Bye-bye.
Ciao. Ciao.